Hello, lovely Toby Hadoke. It's Andrew Ellard here. Since I'm not an actor who played a small role in Doctor Who, you probably need reminding who I am. I'm a TV script editor. I worked on Detectorists, Chewing Gum, Red Dwarf, Miranda, and I've written a few things. Horror movie After Death, Channel 4 Black series Outsiders, and I've got a sci-fi sitcom coming to Children's BBC in 2021. But you don't want to know about that. You want to know what story I've nominated for you to watch, and it's The Rescue. So, that's William Hartnell's second season and the arrival of Vicky aboard the TARDIS. I picked two favourite things about each of the two episodes and one overall thing that I love about it. Can the fandom detective of Old Commentary Street deduce what they are?
Hello everybody, it's the middle of the night and I'm doing my first William Hartnell story for Happy Times and Places. You know what it is because it said that in the title, and if you are about to watch the episode, you've got it all lined up, so press play now. Oh, I love this title sequence. It's nice to be doing a William Hartnell. Number of things to discuss immediately. I'm in a really slightly discombobulated mood because I found The Rescue in the Romans double pack on the shelf and it was shrink wrapped. And I remembered, oh yes, I got a shrink wrap copy because I kept one unopened because this was the first DVD I did a commentary on. This is my first Doctor Who commentary. And I thought, well, I must have, but that was on my shelf, my main shelf downstairs. So I thought, well, I must have given the other one away because, I don't need two copies, and probably thought I'd never watch it for ages. So it didn't matter that, the shrink, so I kept the shrink wrapped one. So I opened it up to use, to watch now. A virgin shrink wrappage. And then I remembered, oh no, I do keep some spares upstairs. So I went upstairs and there was an shrink wrapped one there. So 15 years that's been shrink wrapped, untouched, perfectly preserved. And now I've just rather carelessly opened it. And in fact, I was so annoyed. That's not the one we're watching. I immediately put it back and have put it upstairs, but it's not shrink wrapped anymore. So my collector, I'm not much of a collector, feels sick inside that I didn't just check upstairs, and I've undone all that preservation because I'm sure there's a real shortage of copies of anyway. So hello, I also, this is also different because out of shot and out of earshot, my other half is what she's saying, because I would have quite liked her to have interrupted or knocked on halfway through, so I could have gone, "You can't come in," which will become a favourite pastime of watching this. And the other reason, apart from this being my first DVD commentary, is that this episode 1 of The Rescue, The Powerful Enemy, is one of the few episodes of Doctor Who to have been transmitted on January the 2nd, which is my birthday, which I know from bitter experience is the worst day in the universe because everyone's asleep or hungover or sleeping off their hangover or sleeping off their delayed hangover because they've got through New Year's Day and have really taken the next. So you look in your diary, it'll say January the 1st, New Year's Day, January the 3rd, back to work. In the middle, there's a big black hole of nothing, and certainly no social engagements or birthday parties. So our solidarity with the Rescue, although it was really highly rated. It got really good viewing figures. So obviously everyone was hungover and staying in. I love Vicky's costume. This is Maureen O'Brien. It's Vicky, who I used to be quite cross with because she didn't do many interviews about Doctor Who, and when she did, she came across as really dismissive. Having met her, she's the loveliest woman in the world, and actually now that I've spoken to her, I can see where a sentence where she might say something like, "Well, I'm only doing this interview to plug my book," may read as brusque when written down, but actually when you hear it come from her, she's not being remotely dismissive of Doctor Who. It's just her sort of bluntness, which is in no way disparaging. So it was really interesting to encounter the person and to hear her say the sort of things I'd seen her say written down that had made me think, oh, she doesn't like Doctor Who. She's fine about Doctor Who. She's had a fantastic career. So in the 80s when we were sort of, wanting to read interviews with companions and people. She was busy doing high quality work, so probably didn't have an awful lot of time or indeed inclination, which is fair enough. I met her at the 50th anniversary thing, and I needed to interview somebody from the rescue, and as we will see, there's not much of a cast or crew, and those that there are I'd already spoken to in the commentary, and I think it was it Marcus Hearn? It was somebody said, "Oh, why don't you speak to Maureen O'Brien?" I went, "But she hates doing interviews about Doctor Who. She's not going to say yes." And she said yes, and she was great. And then we shared a taxi, and I emailed her the other day. We're still in touch, and she's really nice. Living in France and doing her garden. Very smart woman, very nice woman. So, poor old William Hartnell is very sad that Susan... So this is the first breakup of the TARDIS crew, because Susan left last week. And he's going to ask Susan to do something, isn't he? And she's not going to be there. He's going to be sad. I might just turn the sound up slightly. Oh, the trembling stopped. I'm so glad you're feeling better. That's a great gag. Ha 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 ha. She's non-alcoholic, by the way. I'm having a late night beer and watching Doctor Who, because I love Doctor Who. I don't know about you. And I do love black and white Doctor Who. I'm interested. And what's also nice about this, because this is not a story of great heft, let's be honest. It's a man pretending to be locked in a cupboard to for some reason string a young woman along. And in fact, I remember in the book Doctor Who: The Early Years, which that was like the Dead Sea Scrolls, because my mum had bought it because I'd seen it in the Longleat shop. And it got pictures of old Doctor Who, and I went, oh gosh, if money was no object, I'd love that. And my mum obviously had then gone back to the shop because she bought a load of stuff that she then put in a cupboard in one of the rooms in our house, ready for Christmas. And I found it, so I would occasionally sneak in there and have a look. Now, I didn't read the whole book because I knew that I wanted something to be there for Christmas. Oh, I love that bit where he speaks for Susan and she's not there, and he looks so look at him, he's heartbroken. And there's a sort of stillness there. He was a good screen actor, Hartnell. Oh, yes. There's a real vulnerability about him there. And I love the way these two are with him. The dynamic between these three is a thing of beauty. Look at them. Aren't they? Don't you just love them? Don't you want to be with them? I think this TARDIS crew is absolutely... And I love this cave and the darkness. The lighting in here is fantastic. With the TARDIS flashing... So it is the inky blackness of that cave set is terrific, and the flashing light is. I haven't seen this for so long, and it's an odd dynamic. I will say this a lot because oh, hang on, you can see the back of the cave through the back of the TARDIS. Look, so the TARDIS prop hasn't got its back on. That's a special dimensional trick where the Koquillion circuit has blended the insides of the TARDIS with the cave. See, you can explain anything you like with sci-fi. The Doctor Who: The Early Years. And I remember there was a picture from the rescue and it said something like, yeah, you're being quite rude. That was a sort of Donald Trump hand gesture, that. When he's being rude about somebody. Ian... Although I approve of the pocket square, I always approve of someone with a pocket square. And there was a picture in Doctor... What she's doing now, Ian, Susan, because she's... you left her many years in the past. What she's doing now is being dead. That's the sad thing about time travel. You leave somebody and you travel forward a few hundred years, and the person you've left behind... Oh! Koquillion, I love that mask, and it photographs really well because there were loads of photographs of it in the Early Years book, and it's I think it's a pretty neat costume. It wobbles a bit in a way that it doesn't with the still pictures. So those antennae are a little bit, they detract a little bit, whereas the still pictures it looks incredible. It was one of those pictures where it said, the rescue was the story none of the original cast wanted to do or something. I can't remember why. That's very good, isn't it? 2-bit with the spaceship and it's the trick they use with the Dalek City and the Daleks as well. Of course, yes, this is called The Rescue, but there's an episode of the Daleks called The Rescue. It's very confusing. You'd have thought within the first year they'd managed not to replicate titles. So the early years made an allusion to the fact that the cast didn't originally want to do this script. Not quite, and I'm sure it explains, but I remember that, and I don't remember the details. Apart from obviously there is a certain subtext of going, why has Bennett kept Vicky alive, and what exactly does he want to do? And that mask survived. There's a brilliant publication called Nothing at the End of the Lane, published by Richard Bignell, who is the great Doctor Who researcher, and he's always very good at sharing his knowledge and his spoils. He's like an oracle of arcana, and there's some photos of what's left of that mask, because it was rescued by Sinan, who then I think hired it out and changed it for fancy dress and things like that. So you got this great relic of Doctor Who, and it had lost a few. I think you can see the antenna aren't on for this world anyway, but nobody knows where it is now. But it survived then, and there are relatively recent photographs, although I think it's since gone missing. Some of probably a fan who isn't like Richard bought it and has kept it in a cupboard and gone, I'm the only one who's got this, next to my shrink-wrapped copy of The Rescue in the Romans DVD that I've kept in my shrink-wrap because I know how to look after things. Oh, I'm never going to forgive myself for that. I did just, before I started though, I did just look on, I could buy one for $12.99, so, but it's just the fact, I remember when I first watched this, Barbara falls off a cliff. That's a great shot, look at that. You forget how close they go in black and white sometimes, and with the restored picture, because obviously when I first saw this, it was in decent quality. I was very lucky with some of the bootlegs I got, and I remember The Rescue being actually particularly good quality. The Aztecs was a mess, and the Invasion was a veritable mixture of textures, but this was all right. I like his now as regular viewers will know, I do like a bit of neckwear, but I've never worn anything like that. I wonder what you call it. It's not a cravat, is it? It's a... Do you know what that's called? Ribbon? A ribbon. A neck ribbon. Don't see those nowadays. Koquillion, that's a good name, isn't it? And Koquillion... Now, I sometimes don't mention things that I think are obvious. However, Koquillion is credited as Sidney Wilson, which is a mixture of the names of Sidney Newman and Donald Wilson, who essentially created Doctor Who. Yeah, look, the TARDIS hasn't got a back. And of course, well, I don't want to spoil it for my other half who's never seen it, but Sidney Wilson is not a real person, because the actor playing Koquillion is also playing another character in this episode. And the list of suspects is huge. Now, this is what's going to be interesting. I don't know why Andrew Ellard, that's the beautiful thing about Doctor Who. I'm a great admirer of the work of Andrew Ellard, who has nominated The Rescue, and he's given me 2 reasons. I didn't ask him to, but because it's only a 2-part, he's giving me 2 reasons per episode and a bonus reason. So 5 in total, like I would get for a Russell T Davies or Modern Who episode, which is exactly what I would have hoped for, even though I didn't suggest it to him. So he's a smart guy. But the beautiful thing is, and I love his tweet notes that he does on Doctor Who episodes and films and stuff, but I've never actually met him, and I don't know him. But I just sent him a message and said, will you do this silly podcast thing of mine? And he's responded. Fascinatingly. But I would be interested to see what he chooses and why he, as a great man of scripts, has chosen this story, which is very much an introduction to a companion and not an awful lot else. I think if it is, although people do like it, I think people like it because it's short. Because I think a 6-part black and white is quite a big ask for today's audience. Whereas this is the length of this whole story is the length it takes to do a modern story. But yeah, I would be interested. I'm sure he will choose. Oh, I should have got a pen and a thing. I'll have to remember what my favourite things are. Definitely, I think I'm going to choose the bit where he calls for Susan and she's not there and he's really sad. And I suspect I would be surprised if Andrew didn't choose that. He's not going to choose the fact that it was broadcast on my birthday. Although I hadn't been born then, by the way. There were quite a few January the 2nds to come before the one where I was sent mewling and puking into this world. I love William Russell. I love William Hartnell too. There's something really comfortable about this TARDIS crew. I really like being with them. Oh, and I'll tell you what I really like. I like the fact that they've gone to the effort of putting the set on an angle, because obviously, as we saw in the model shot, the spaceship is broken into 3, and on the rocks like that. But you can, and that's how they've done it with the set, and not with, I don't think with tricky angles. I think they've gimbaled it up, or they've built it on an angle, and that it sells it. It's brilliant, and she's so good too. And I love her costume. I love her neck thing round her neck. Neck things go around the neck. I know, yeah. Neck things, neck strings. Oh, he's so mean to her. She's great, isn't she? But yeah, he's I mean, he's not trying to be nice, I have to say. You know, he's telling them, he's telling her, he's yeah. She was originally, she wasn't going to be called Vicky, was she? She was going to be called Tammy or Lucky. And I have a script for the Space Museum, which is a later story, where she is actually written as Tanny. I think Vicky slightly dates better. So Koquillion has gone to talk to Bennett. Did you say you can't come in? Yes, that's what I wanted to do to you, other half out of shot. I wanted you to come and get something from the fridge, and me go, you can't come in, because he does it quite a lot. Oh yeah, she's hiding Barbara. Barbara's hair in this is amazing. I mean, I assume that takes some doing to make your hair like that. But that's quite a lot of it.
You're looking to me for...
Yeah, for hair. I want to know how you make your hair like that in the 60s. I can only
see the top of her head because she's just come out with a blanket.
Yeah, well, that's true. She has... yeah.
Backcombing.
Backcombing. Mm. There's the tip there. So if you want to do a Babs original, backcomb your hair, but you need a lot of hair. But she looked a right state in the morning. It was interesting that they pretty much they replaced Susan with somebody who's sort of the same age, and Susan's slightly weirder, I think, and I don't mean that pejoratively. I like it when Susan's weird. She's got a really sort of big-eyed, sad, innocent quality, hasn't she? Oh, yeah. I wonder if this was her audition piece. It's a nice bit. But yeah, this was the first one I did a commentary on, and it's with Ray Cusick, Christopher Barry, the director, and William Russell. And it was also, just by coincidence, it was the night that my one-man show, Moths Ate My Doctor Who Scarf, opened at the West End. So I had to get a train at 5 a.m, I think, to get to London in time to do the commentary during the day. And then I made my West End debut in the evening. And then when I got back to my, I was going to say hotel, it was a Travelodge, in which my director, Mark, because they couldn't afford to put him up as well, shared my bed. And we had a few drinks and we were just going to sleep. And then Chortle announced the Sony nominations, and Moths Ate My Doctor Who Scarf, the radio version, got nominated for a Sony Award. So that was quite a, it was an April day, 6th, 9th, something like that. It was an April day, and all those three things happened. And I think life has plummeted ever since. I don't think I've ever quite had a triumvirate of firsts or successes or joys. So that's another reason for me to be very fond of The Rescue. But I think it's, I mean, I can't really say that, you know, just the dynamic of the crew, this bunch, I suppose, because we take that for granted, because they're like it in everyone. It's not typical to this, and these two have got a great dynamic, and these two have a great dynamic. Oh, she's so lovely, Vicky. Yeah, it was amazing having had that early years book and to have read those names, you know, having stolen them from the cupboard, to then be in a room at Television Centre with where it had been. How was this made at Television Centre? No, this was made at Riverside, wasn't it? I don't know, can't remember. Riverside, I would guess. No. I might tell you in episode 2, because that's niggling me. There's a photo of that. We've got lots of lovely black and white photos from these days, and those design photos that Ray Cusick gave to the early years book. And the early years book I'd taken with me to get signed. Where's Koquillion gone, Bennett? Has he gone through a different door? Or yes, he has, Bennett, and you know that, don't you? And Ray Barrett, of course, was no slouch in terms of a guest star, but he was not Christopher Barry's first choice. Christopher Barry offered the part of Bennett. He's got a good face, hasn't he? To he had very got a very pockmarked face, Ray Barrett, which he was very sort of open about, saying it actually helped him get parts because he had a sort of lived-in look, which of course from, you know, teenage acne and stuff. I know as a psoriasis patient that the skin can be a pernicious beast, but actually having a lived-in face is quite good as a character actor. Ray Barrett got loads of work, good actor. But no, the part was offered to Bernard Archard, who was obviously a favourite of Christopher Barry, because then he did agree to be in Doctor Who for Christopher Barry in Power of the Daleks, in which he plays the villain Bragan, and then comes back in Pyramids of Mars, not for Christopher Barry, but for Paddy Russell. But yes, he was offered the part because I guess he was doing Spycatcher at the time, so he was a big name, but turned it down. Just didn't fancy. Because in those days, when as an actor, you could get offered a guest lead in a TV series and just go, yeah, no, I don't fancy it. Because I'm sure he didn't say I'm busy. He didn't even soft serve and go, oh no, I'm doing something. He just went, no, you're all right. So yeah, having read the names in the book, and I'd got my early years book with me to get signed at the commentary because I'm so unprofessional. I'm not letting my 10-year-old self down. I don't care. And so it ended up being a prop on the set of my West End show because I decorated it with some of my, personal Doctor Who ephemera. And what was very beautiful is that Jeremy Bentham, who I found this out years later, who wrote Doctor Who the early years, had come to see it at the West End. A group of them had come, of the sort of, the founding fans of yesteryear, whose names were, enshrined in all of those first texts. And he'd been quite chuffed to see that his book was on my sofa on my set, and quite right too. It was as I say, it was like an ancient screed full of magic. I like Sandy the Sandbeast. I think that's a good design, and this is great. Perils of Pauline stuff. Is it a good design? Well, actually, I'm regretting saying that because it didn't look great there. But no, no, Sandy the Sandbeast is fine. So, Koquillion, Sidney Wilson. Don't go looking for Sidney Wilson. He doesn't exist. That was jolly. What will Andrew Ellard have chosen? Because that was rather a personal odyssey. I'm sorry about that. It's going to be that sometimes. But just because there's various different things in that story that chime for me. However, so the two things I'm going for William, the Doctor, calling for Susan, realising she's not there and looking desperately sad, and Ian and Barbara being lovely to him. And I think I'll go for the design of Koquillion's mask, which I think is really spiky and scary. It's a good design. It does the job. Striking. I did that. Honourable mentions to the darkness of the cave set, the general dynamic between Ian and Barbara and the Doctor, Vicky, of course, the spaceship being like that. There's loads, isn't there? Even in 25 minutes. Let's see what Andrew Ellard has chosen. And I think the rules are, I keep forgetting what the rules are. I think I'm trying to guess what he's guessed. And if I do, I become king and you have to bow down before me. And if I don't, you have to feel very sorry for me and buy me a coffee. There we are. Right. So I like those rules. Can we remember those, please? Those are now the rules, because I don't think they've always been the rules, but I've decided I like those. Right. Andrew Ellard. And he's even done, you could tell he's an episode professional. He's a television professional. He's put episode 1, thing 1. Good for him.
One favourite thing in episode 1 is the mystery, and specifically the moment early on where Koquillion appears next to the TARDIS. It's a wonderfully directed moment. We hard cut to the monstrous face and pull back like we're trying to escape. But what's especially clever is that in retrospect you realise he's here because Vicky told Bennett a ship had arrived. At the time you don't get that. We don't even know there's a mystery to solve, in fact. But later, it adds up very neatly.
Always. He's clever, isn't he? This is like when Simon Guerrier did it and he picked out all sorts of clever thready things, whereas I just go, I like that, what that looks like, or I like that actor when he did that thing. Andrew's, of course, a script editor, so he's going to go, I'm going to piece all these magical things together and be clever and explain why I work in television regularly. Okay. But, always judge a man by the quality of the guests of his podcast, is what I say. So, and I said that whilst looking away from the microphone, which is what records the podcast, looking in the camera, which records the video bit. Yes.
A real favourite thing about this story for me is the emotional capability of it all. Where a lot of the early shows felt overly functional, this never forgets to connect events to emotions and character perspectives. What everyone thinks and feels. Everyone has an inner emotional life. We get the Doctor asking for Susan in the TARDIS and catching himself, remembering she's gone. It's an old trick, but it's wonderfully acted. We get him calling from inside the TARDIS, remember, I can hear what you're saying. He lies to Ian and Barbara that he's going for a nap, when in fact he's checking his own faulty memory to see if this is indeed the planet Dido. He keeps up his bravado in the caves, pretending it was Ian who needed a rest, not him. And we get Barbara trying to stop Ian from saying There's one more person in the ship, but too late. Again, perfectly acted, that one. Ian knows he said too much and continues with resignation, which I know all feels small, but it allows for comedy to work among the core cast in a way it doesn't always. The comfy irritation of Ian posing the torch in the Doctor's face, or Vicky observing that Barbara is 500 years old. And look how those tiny shoots grow across the story. Eventually we get to the Doctor eavesdropping, hearing himself being described and genuinely touched by it. We have the reveal that he always knew the Didonians looked human, that the Koquillion costume is exactly that, a costume. Perhaps best of all, we have Vicky never forgetting that while Bennett committed mass murder and genocide, the key thing for her is that he killed her father. Compare and contrast that with the way Nyssa basically stops minding that the Master is walking around wearing her dad's face.
Wow. Well, there's no way I was going to say all of that, especially as some of that for episode 2. I think Andrew's just ruined it for my other half by giving away who the killer is, i.e. the only other person in the story. Well, I mean, he did say he started, because there was quite a lot in his thing. Thing 2 was quite a lot of things, including the Doctor and Susan. I did say I like the dynamic between them. So I think I'm having that. I think that is part way towards my coronation. So it's even Stevens, one apiece between Andrew and I. So I've got half a cup of coffee and half a kingdom, which I'll take. I don't need anybody to come to my rescue. So thanks for that. I'm probably going to watch the other episode now. You will have to return some other time. So for now, thanks for watching. And what?
Well, that's the first time I've seen a Doctor Who episode where it was how you taught me to remember the neighbours' names.
It was how I taught you to...
It's the first episode I've seen it.
We have neighbours called... The only thing I'm doing in lockdown... fact... We're going to leave it on it, because what happens is when I talk when the episode's not on, it means that I then have big gaps of the episode where I haven't got anything to say. So I'm going to leave you on a cliffhanger to explain that contribution. So come back next time, unless I do 2 episodes at once, which I haven't decided yet. But anyway, in episode 2, I shall reveal all. But for now, go away. You can't come in.
If people want to find me, I'm Andrew Ellard. My website's andrewellard.com. My Twitter is EllardEnt. That's Ellard, E-N-T.